Hi friends, as part of Civilspedia, we will be discussing 4 topics today. Under the editorial discussion, the Trafficking of Persons Bill 2018, and under the prelims topic, calcium carbide, acute encephalitis syndrome, and haircut for banks. We will start with the Trafficking of Persons Prevention, Protection, and Rehabilitation Bill 2018. So this bill provides for prevention, rescue, and rehabilitation of trafficked persons. We will see what trafficking is, and then what are the existing laws and legislations to deal with trafficking in India, and the key features of this new bill. To put it simply, human trafficking is defined as the acquisition of people by improper means such as force, fraud, or deception with the aim of exploiting them. So the UN ODC, that is the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes, it defines trafficking as involving 3 elements. That is the act, it means, and the purpose. So act, that is what is done. So what is done in trafficking? So it can be recruitment, transport, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons. This is the act done in trafficking. And secondly, means that is how it is done. So how trafficking is done? It is through threat or use of force or coercion or abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power or vulnerability, or finally giving payments or benefits. And the third one is purpose, why it is done. It's for exploitation. Exploitation includes prostitution of others or sexual exploitation, slavery, forced labor, and also organ trade, among other exploitation. So this is how trafficking is defined by UN ODC. This organization, it is the guardian of the UN Convention against transnational organized crimes, and also the Trafficking in Persons protocol. So this protocol deals with cross-border and within-country trafficking problem, and it was adopted by the UN General Assembly in 2000. So from mains perspective, you should know the details of UN ODC, because many a times there has been question about international organization in GS2 paper. Now, trafficking, it is the 3rd largest organized crime in the world, and it is one of the most pervasive and the yet invisible crime which violates the basic human rights. Also, it affects the most vulnerable section like women and children. It's not like it is only affecting women and children, but they are the most vulnerable victims. Almost 20,000 women and children were trafficked in India in 2016, according to the government data. And if you see this number, it is just the tip of the iceberg, because it's very difficult to get the actual or accurate data, because many cases goes unregistered. Now, it's very rampant near the eastern borders of India, that is near the Bangladesh and Nepal border, and it has become a serious issue for the security forces. Now, we will see what are the existing provisions and legislations dealing trafficking in India. For the first one, it is the right against exploitation, that is the fundamental rights, which are Article 23 and 24. Article 23, it prohibits traffic in human beings and forced labor, while Article 24 deals with child labor. Now, coming to the Indian Penal Code, here the section 370 and 370A, it defines and penalizes trafficking, and section 371, it criminalizes slavery. Then there is section 372 and 373, it criminalizes the selling and buying of underage girls for prostitution. Now there is the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1956. This criminalizes acts dealing with sexual work. In this act, it deals mainly with men who are engaged in trafficking work, while there is no provision to deal with women traffickers. And then there is the Juvenile Justice Act of 2015. It gives framework for protection of children who are missing or who are under the threat of being trafficked. And then this last two ones, that is the bonded labor system and the contract labor. These two deals with the forced labor. Apart from these acts, there are so many acts which deals with one or other factor that comes under the trafficking. But if you see this, these acts deals trafficking in different ways and they are not connected to each other. So there was a demand to have a single legislation which will harmonize and integrate all these laws. For this, the government enacted the new Trafficking of Persons Bill 2018. And the key features, before going to the key features, this bill is going beyond criminalization, and it is trying to deal with the problems and to prevent and protect the trafficked victims as well. Coming to the key features, the first one is it proposes to establish a national anti-trafficking bureau which will deal with the monitoring, the surveillance of trafficking cases, and also coordinating the national, state and district level monitoring of the trafficking cases. Also, the state government, it will appoint a nodal officer who will act as the state anti-trafficking officer, and he will coordinate the provisions of the bill at the state level. Also, there is a provision for establishing anti-trafficking units at the district level, which will look into the trafficking cases. This will ensure grassroots level coverage of this bill. And also, it provides for an anti-trafficking relief and rehabilitation committee. This committee will be focusing on rehabilitation of the trafficked victims and their integration into the society. And for this, a rehabilitation fund have been established with an initial allocation of 10 crore. Using this fund, the central government and the state government will be establishing protection and rehabilitation homes, and it will provide shelter, food, medical care, and of course this counseling for trafficked victims. Then there will be designated courts which will ensure that the trials are completed within 1 year. That is, for the time-bound trial, there will be designated courts. And finally, coming to the penalties, the bill provides for various penalties for different crimes under the trafficking. And it also lays down severe punishment for of 10 years to life imprisonment for aggravated crimes under trafficking. So these are the key features of the bill. Now moving to our next topic, calcium carbide. Recently there was reports in newspaper about the using of calcium carbide for artificial ripening of fruits. So this is a chemical compound and its chemical formula is CaC2. It's a colorless compound in its pure form, but the technical grade is usually a grayish brown in color. This is the technical grade. Now coming to the applications of calcium carbide, it is used in several industries and mainly for the manufacture of acetylene gas and also for the manufacture of chemicals for fertilizer manufacturing and also in the steel industry as a desulfurizer. But we will be focusing on this application, that is the production of acetylene gas, because of which calcium carbide is used for the ripening of fruits. Now when calcium carbide is applied on fruits, it will react with the moisture in the atmosphere as well as the moisture which is emanated from the respiration of the fruits. And when it reacts with moisture, it generates the acetylene gas. And this gas helps in the ripening of fruits. Acetylene gas as such, it is not a lethal gas, but when it is produced from calcium carbide, it will contain traces of arsenic. and this is injurious to human health. Thus, calcium carbide will alter the human cells to cancer cells and becoming a carcinogenic agent. Apart from causing cancer, it can also cause skin allergies and skin rashes and finally leading to skin cancer. Also, it may also cause liver and kidney failure. Now, the use of calcium carbide is banned in India and it is a criminal offense, especially under the Food Safety Prohibition and Restriction in Sale Regulation 2011. It bans persons from selling fruits which are ripened using acetylene gas or calcium carbide. Also, the FSSA Act of 2006, that is the Food Safety and Standards Act 2006, it also bans the use of calcium carbide. An alternative for this can be the use of ethylene gas. It's also an artificial ripening, but it is safer than many other methods. Since the use of ethylene gas is more expensive, sellers often use calcium carbide. And since most of the fruits procured from market is artificially ripened using this calcium carbide, the best way to remove carbide amount is to wash properly the fruits before using it. Now moving to our next topic, acute encephalitis syndrome. Encephalitis, it is a disease that affects human brain and causes acute inflammation. This AES, it is an umbrella term which includes a group of clinically similar diseases like the Japanese encephalitis and many others. Coming to the causative agent, there is a wide range of causal agents that causes an AES. In India, it is mainly attributed to viruses. And the other causative agents are bacteria, fungi, parasites, and sometimes chemicals or toxins. And this causative agent, it varies with seasons and geographical location. For example, the Japanese encephalitis, it coincides with monsoons and post-monsoon period when mosquitoes are very much available. And because the Japanese encephalitis is spread through mosquito bites. In northern and eastern India, AES outbreak is attributed or it is linked to eating of unripe lychee fruit. Unripe lychee fruit by children in empty stomach, because this unripe lychee fruit has certain toxins which causes vomiting and acute fever which leads to immediate hospitalization of children. So these are some examples, and then it mainly affects per population which are below 15 years, that is children below 15 years. Now coming to the signs and symptoms, the main sign is acute fever and sometimes mental confusion which leads to unconsciousness. So these are some of the facts about AES. Moving to our last topic, haircut for bangs. You might be wondering what is it with haircuts and bangs. Haircut in banking sector or in finance, it means a difference between the loan amount and the actual value of the asset used as a collateral. Or coming to the loan recovery context, it is the difference between the actual amount to be paid by the borrower and the amount with which he settles with the bank. So this haircut is actually used in Indian banking system to deal with the NPA problem. That is the non-performing assets. You know, the mounting NPA has become a big menace for the banks, and India is one of the India is on the top list of the countries with high NPAs, because of which government is taking a string of reforms to address this problem. And haircut is one option to deal with non-performing assets. It's not very common in India, but it is used as a last resort when there is absolutely no hope of recovery and the loan is settled for a one-time payment. And it helps the banks in one way that it will get some amount of money from the borrowers instead of getting no money at all. And especially in cases where the value of the collateral is much less than the amount to be paid by the borrower, the banks instead of going for litigation, they will settle for a reduced amount so that they can clear their balance sheets. So that is about the haircuts. That's all for today. Thank you for your time.